Hello, welcome back to Practically Magic. This is season 2 of our show. And I am Courtney Pearl. Today I am acting as your Celtic folk witch. And we are back to learn and discover the true magic and real magic of the world. Energies, magic practicing, all of the things that make your life easier and better and remind you that you are all powerful. Okay, let's get into it. I am so excited to be back. I took about a month off, 6 weeks off during the summertime. My kids are home. I really wanted to gather some new ideas and get ready and be fresh again for another season of the show. And I feel like I've done that. I've also learned a lot about getting social media up and going and getting some of this information that I like to share with you out into the world. So I hope that I have done that. I hope that I've been doing a good job of that, because the whole reason for the podcast, for my social media, for a lot of the courses and classes that I offer is to help educate people on how they can be powerful, how they can take a little bit more of an active role in the magic of their lives. And I also really love to dabble into the folklore and mythologies and how they play a part in all of that. So I've been doing some storytelling events. Oh, so much fun. Yeah, it's been a fun, busy summer. My kids are back in school. And so I'm excited to be back to recording. And if you did not listen or watch season 1's final finale, I guess it was, I had Just Blaine, the CEO of Ride the Wave Media Network that this podcast is on. He produces all of my episodes, and he's also host to Radio Daybreak here locally. And he was a guest on my podcast for the last episode, kind of talking about all of the things that we had done for season 1, where we were headed. And it was also the announcement of the Witch Movie Project, which is a side project we're doing connected to Practically Magic, where we have been watching and reviewing 2 witch movies each episode. And so we're already recording for those, and that has been a blast. I cannot wait for you to hear it. When we release that, it will be at the beginning of September. So watch out for that if you are listening and ready to dive into that with us. It's going to be a blast to do 16 different movies total, all having to do with witches. And we are getting ready for Samhain or Halloween. So all of them are leading up to the end of October. So let's get into our episode today, though. And that is, of course, as always, we are going to pull a card. I debated whether or not this season I wanted to continue this opening, but I do feel like just pulling one card and briefly telling you what it might mean for you, I do think that does set the tone for being magical or for letting this experience be for you. So let's find out. I'm using the Witch's Wisdom deck this time because it is just one of my favorites. It's very detailed, and I feel like the artwork is just so vivid and so bright and colorful and full of symbolism. So, I actually am pulling 2 cards here. I usually pull 1, but I got the 9 of Fire. And for this deck, the image in this card specifically, and for those who are watching on YouTube, I am going to show the image of the card. So if you are just listening to the audio only of this, pop on over to YouTube. You can see the picture. It is like if abundance was a picture, this is what it would be. And I feel like that is incredibly perfect for this particular time of year. The time that I'm recording this, it is during the season heading towards the equinox. We just celebrated Lunisad or Lamas or Gwil Aust, which is the beginning of August. That is marked in the Celtic or pagan calendar wheel of the year as the first harvest. And it's not just pagans that believe that, by the way. That comes from ancient traditions, usually in Northern European traditions that came from a long time ago. There were feasts and festivals at this time of year because this is when the first vegetables and fruits and wheat were harvested. So this is when the fruits of your labors literally would be harvested, and you would get to see just how much the hard work you've put in all year was going to come to fruition. Like back in Imbolc during February time of the year, you're starting to plant. You're starting to plant seeds. You're starting to put in the work of hope and manifestation and energy and counting your chickens before they've hatched, just hoping that all of that effort you're putting in, all that energy, all that thought, all that planning was going to result in taking care of you later. You were going to get to see that come back. And, in ancient times, obviously that was a connection to whether or not you were going to survive the winter. You needed a good harvest. You and your family would need a good harvest in order to be able to survive the winter. So that's really important. Modern times, well, we have grocery stores and we have, price hikes and sales, and we have to worry about that. The economy going the direction that it's going. We need to worry about whether or not we're going to be able to afford our fruits and vegetables, but we aren't so much concerned about whether or not we're going to survive the winter. And this applies more so in our business, in our personal lives, in our professional lives. What sort of things have you been putting into action, putting into planning that are now going to be put into the physical world? So because this is the number 9 in fire, the fire element often symbolizes what we are physically, actively going to see come of this, right? It's going to be no longer in our thoughts, no longer just in our planning or our visualizations, but now is going to manifest into the real world as actual physical things. And it's kind of putting it into action. So this card is really, really a wonderful card because it's kind of like, all right, the fruits and vegetables are on the vine. They are on the plant. Are you ready to take it? That's the question for you today, is now that stuff is starting to come at you, opportunities, things you've wanted, are you ready to pick? Are you ready to harvest? Or are you going to let it rot on the vine? What is it that you're actually asking for? And is it something you really wanted now that you have it? Or now that it's ready? It's at your fingertips. It's interesting because I also pulled a second card on, not on purpose, but this is just the way the cards fell out. So I always take that to mean it definitely is meant for us. I got the Messenger of Air. And it's kind of this nymph-like character. I haven't read the guidebook because I typically don't, but this is nymph-like character, not quite human, almost of the Fae world, holding a Canadian goose in their arms. It's kind of like a baby, very like gentle and nurturing. And the question that I ask myself for you, listener, is are you being gentle with yourself as far as the thoughts you're having in your mind? Are you being really hard on yourself right now? Are you beating yourself up a lot? Are you saying I could have or should have a lot? Or if you will, do you have the case of the shoulds? That's something that gets brought up a lot in my healing work, emotional healing, is do you have the case of the shoulds? Is someone shoulding all over you? And if that's the case, maybe just take a moment to rethink how your thoughts, how you can be more mindful of your thoughts, mindful of how you talk to yourself in your mind. Because as you know from this podcast, this message I have for you since episode 1 of season 1, I have been talking about the power of thought and words. that the words, the will, and the way create spells. And so I think that that card is just a really good reminder of maybe just asking yourself, how gentle are you with yourself? How is that going? And maybe that is a perfect opportunity to lead into today's subject. Okay. I have been toying with the idea of doing more of like a discussion type of show as we're kind of coming into the format. And I've loved season 1 of Practically Magic and how I've been able to get a lot of really good information out to people. And I am by no means an expert or guru on all things magical, but I do love to learn and I do love to teach. And I love to present these ideas to you so that you can be the decider of how much of it you believe in, how much of it you practice, how much of it helps you. And so if you have different ideas than what I'm presenting on the show, engage with me. Email me, message me, get on my social media. Let me know what your experience has been or whether you agree or disagree with me. And that can be a great subject for discussion in future episodes. So absolutely, I don't give myself the pedestal to stand on and say that I am the end all be all of all things magical, but I do love to learn and I do love to collect just what it is that I and by the way, magic and belief and faith is fluid. It's never something that's going to stand in one place and stay there forever, or nor should it, I think. The kind of magical practitioner or priestess or healing facilitator or empowerment midwife that I have been before in my past, it's changed a lot, even just in the last couple of years. The more I learn and the more I understand about certain things, the more I'm like, maybe I don't believe in it in quite that way anymore. Maybe there's just a shift there. And that's okay. You're early in your journey of becoming a magical person, then you get to discover those things on your own. And one of the things that has been brought to my attention lately, so instead of ending with question from a listener, as I tried to do in the first season, I am going to start with questions from a listener and let that be the subject of our episode today. So what we've done is in season 1, I had a couple of times here and there where I sort of joked about curses. I would say something like, hey, I don't curse, unless I charge extra. And I tried to kind of just joke about, cursing or being a witch and what that looks like or how that actually comes into play. And it's interesting because I had someone who came to me who was someone I know personally, but also had been listening to the show and said, oh my gosh, like, you weren't serious, right? I mean, you never said you were kidding. So I was worried. You don't actually curse people, right? You don't believe in that, right? And I think that gave me an opportunity to really kind of stop and think about that for a moment, because I think that that is a huge, huge topic of discussion when talking about witchcraft and when talking about magical practitioners and how they show up as whatever title they call themselves. There is a lot, obviously, centuries of propaganda against witches, witchcraft, and the association with Satanism and the devil and it being evil and it being anti-Christian or being anti, good or light. And, there's such thing labels like I'm a white witch or I'm a, dark witch or like what sort of things that they do or practice. And so I think this is a perfect opportunity to address it in the way that I understand it and believe it, right? So let's talk about curses and hexes just for a second. There's a lot of famous curses. I loved kind of diving into this and doing a little bit of research, but if you have ever heard of King Tut's curse, February of 1923, they opened King Tut's tomb, and then a lot of team members from the dig and the archaeologists and things like that were mysteriously dying. A team sponsor died of an infection 2 months after. And then some other members of the team died. And this just went rampant in the newspapers. Like, okay, there's a curse. King Tut's tomb was cursed. And this is also just kind of a fun and exciting story to think about, is that something ancient, and that the Egyptians laid a curse because they didn't want the tomb disturbed. And so they've done such a bad thing by disturbing it. And now they're reaping the consequences of disturbing this Egyptian tomb. Now that's exciting. That makes a good story. In fact, that's what the premise of the movie The Mummy is all about, right? So it was fueled by newspapers. A lot of the newspapers, this is much like the Iceman, who was discovered in 1991. A lot of team members died after that. It wasn't an official mummy, but basically the body of a Ice Age man was found. And so one of the team members died in a blizzard. Another one died in a heart attack, of muscular MS. Sorry, not muscular. Anyway, another one died of in a car crash, and now the mummy's remains, the man, is on display in Italy. And so same thing. The newspapers got a hold of the story, and it was kind of like, oh my gosh, there's a curse. There's a curse on this because so many people have died that were involved in the discovery of this artifact. Kind of fun, kind of interesting, kind of sad and tragic all at the same time, but people love that kind of stuff. I mean, it can be, people dying here, and people reading the newspaper and reading the media love this. There's the curse of the Hope Diamond. In 1660s, Jean-Baptiste Tavernier purchased a diamond from India, and there became a rumor that this diamond was cursed by an Indian goddess or a Hindu goddess. The diamond ended up in 1839 was purchased by Henry Philip Hope in London, and it's known as the Hope Diamond. In the 1910s, American heiress Evelyn Walsh McLean purchased it, or got a hold of it, or was gifted it. I'm not sure exactly. I actually saw the Hope Diamond in person at the Smithsonian Museum when I was a teenager, and I took pictures of it. Was really excited about it. But it's interesting in learning about this curse, or this rumor of a curse around a diamond, that I couldn't find anywhere where the people who had any association with this diamond were actually cursed, or had died, or had gotten ill, or anything like that. There wasn't even anything like that going on. And yet it just was a rumor. It was just something that was like, oh, this Hope Diamond, it's cursed. There's Tecumseh's curse. He was a chief of the tribe, and there was a story where he had cursed William Henry Harrison, the president of the United States, when the members of his tribe were mistreated. And it was said that all of the U.S. presidents who were elected in the years ending in 0 would be fatal. And apparently 7 presidents have fallen victim to that curse. If you believe in it. Interesting, right? Unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm not sure which way you would swing on that, but the president that we had elected in 2020, fortunately for Joe, he's doing okay. So I don't know if the curse is broken or what, but I did read about this really interesting curse of the conjured chest. It's a chest of drawers that was built in 1830 in Kentucky. And the story goes that Jeremiah Graham had a slave named Remus who built this chest of drawers for his child who was about to be born. And they wanted this chest to be where they would keep the baby's clothes. And I guess he didn't like the way Remus built this chest, and so he beat him. And the members of Remus's family and, you know, I'm not even sure who exactly was, but other slaves, I suspect, had cursed the chest. They had, the story goes, they had killed an owl and spread its blood among the drawers, and that anybody using it would die. And this chest actually has claimed 18 victims, 18 people that have died, which is kind of a lot statistically if you think about it. There's a Rockefeller family curse, and this helps bring us into the idea of family curses. So there's grandchildren and great-grandchildren of the John D. Rockefeller Sr. who have died in strange ways. Family members that had died of suicide. There was a boat overturned and a car crash, and just many tragedies all in one family. But I think it's really, really important to bring forward this idea of family curses. It's something that I find a lot in novels and literature. This family is cursed and or has had this curse for many generations, and that finally someone comes along and they're able to break the curse. They're able to go through a journey or a quest or an experience and somehow be able to break that curse for their family. And I've talked about before, when I talk about generational healing and ancestral healing, that there is something absolutely to the idea that you would want to identify certain things that run in your family because of experiences you've had or experiences your family members have had that have caused trauma, and coping mechanisms for that trauma that don't serve you now. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, or this sounds really confusing to you, please go back to season 1 and look for the episode about ancestral trauma and generational healing, because it is a deep dive into how that can actually affect you. And I feel that when we're talking about curses, it's important to understand that curses look a lot different than what we typically, Hollywood or, I don't know, fiction would have you believe about witchcraft, energy, and cursing. Now, a lot of those curses, the stories that are perpetrated about them, and as they've kind of become famous in the media, they have a lot of connotations that bring up to mind, like someone doing some kind of ritual, maybe a blood sacrifice, something traumatic, dramatic, and exciting that would make it so that some magical practitioner, a priest or priestess, a magician, a wizard, a warlock, some figure of authority in the magical arts has performed this ritual and cursed this family, this tomb, this diamond, this chest of drawers, whatever it is. And the truth, when we get right down to it, there is a lot of cursing going on. We actually participate in every single day, every single moment. I know that psychologists would probably have you believe or tell you that curses are like a placebo. If you believe yourself to be cursed, you're going to manifest that anyway, or a lot more things will fall in line with the idea of being cursed. And it perpetrates a fear so that something is, if you have that belief already, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You're going to say like, oh, I'm so cursed with microwaves. I just made that up on the spot. I have no idea where that came from. But let's just say somebody has this belief that they're like, every time I try to use a microwave, the microwave stops working and it breaks and blah, blah, blah. And so now they have this fear around it. And so they cause it to happen more often. Because they're already like nervous around microwaves. So maybe they're not operating microwaves correctly. I don't know. But psychologists really kind of probably would go in more of a scientific explanation that it's not actually a curse or there's nothing actually happening there. It's just that, if you're told to look for a blue car, you will see blue cars all day long. But if you were asked, how many times did you see a blue car today? You might go, oh, I have no idea. I wasn't looking for blue cars. I didn't see any blue cars. So it's like what you look for, that's what's actually going to show up in your life. And to some degree, I believe that's true. But I also believe in the unseen, that there are things going on that have to do with our own thoughts and feelings and energy towards something. That if we believe that the microwave is not going to work for us, there is something that we are putting out into the universe with that thought and fear. We are resonating at a certain frequency that's going to cause more problems for us with that microwave because that's what we're resonating with. We're attracting that thing. And that's why when I talk about in season 1, episode 2, I think it was, the words, episode about words is like how you pray for something, the word that you use, instead of using a negative, saying, I don't want this. The universe does not understand that. The universe only understands what feeling and intention you're putting into those words. So if you're putting fear of something, the universe is going to say, oh, they want that something, right? Whether you believe in it's a God or if it's a just universal creative energy, the universe attaches to the frequency of the thing that you are resonating at. So there is something to that. There is something to kind of cursing yourself. But here's where I really try to help my students, whether it's my art students or my children or someone that I'm having a discussion with about this, I would want them to understand is that curses and hexes, not necessarily a ritual or ceremony or spell that you put into practice, and that there are many witches who do that, but that there are belief systems on whatever you put out into the universe, you get back threefold. That's kind of a Wiccan doctrine sort of dogma about curses. It's like it's up to each own witch practitioner to understand that mentality and to practice it using their discretion and their own morals and values. When this person that I know was concerned when I said I would do a curse for someone with charging extra, I was kidding. Really, I was. But it does beg the question, why are we so afraid when we hear that word curse or hex? Why is it that we believe there is something demonizing about that? Because in my experience, there is no such thing as pure love and light magic. Just as I don't believe there's anything as darkness and evil, that there's a separation of that when it comes to the way we practice with magic or the way we practice with energy or the way we just move through our life. You may not consider yourself to be a magic practitioner or witch or anything like that, but how do you move through your day? Is there ever such a thing as a purely love and light person who walks through their day like that? And are we demonizing humanity by saying, oh, I would never curse and I would never this and I would never that. I would never think ill of anyone. I would never project that and put that out there. The truth is almost all of us have. And how many times a day are you cursing yourself? Quite honestly, how many times do you think to yourself, I can't do that. I want to do that, but I'm not good enough. I don't deserve that. I'm not worthy of that. There isn't anyone walking the planet that doesn't have thoughts like that consistently throughout the day. Even as we're all on an effort or a journey to heal that part of ourselves and to think differently and to change our thoughts into positive thinking, I think we need to be careful because in demonizing it, we're kind of taking that Christian or even karmic or the new age version of karma, which isn't even what karma is. But let's just say, from the understanding of what karma is, if we're taking that idea and we're saying, okay, so we're putting this out into the universe, we're going to get that back. Just as I explained that all emotions are valid emotions. Emotions can resonate at lower levels and higher levels, but that doesn't make them evil or bad. When I explain to children that anger and sadness and fear, they don't feel very good in our bodies, but they have a purpose. Then I would also say that there isn't such a thing as just good spells and cursing. I would say you need to be careful about what you're spending your time doing and how much and the reasons for it. But I would be very careful to put a label on something like this is good and this is bad. In my experience with the things that exist in realms that we only have some idea about, and quantum physics is pretty clear on the fact that there is other realms, that we are living in other dimensions, and that there are alternate universes and things like that. When we're diving into kind of that belief system and that, playing around with that kind of magic, we need to understand that just like there's a varying degree of emotions that we can experience as a human being, there's also a varying degree of participation that we can have in the otherworldly influences. And it depends on your belief system, right? If you're a Christian and you believe that there are demonic forces at work and that there's evil forces at work and that there is a devil that you could somehow be in participation with, I would argue, well, whether you call it that or not, we are dabbling in those forces all the time. Even the best of us who believe that we are saintly and following in line with everything that Jesus taught us to be and to do, we are dabbling in thoughts and feelings that come up that we have to address, that we can't deny or avoid, right? Doubts and fears are part of the human experience. So I don't know if I've made myself entirely clear on that, but I will say this. I do a demonstration with my students where I will do some muscle testing. And if you don't know what muscle testing is, and I'm going to be showing this on the camera, so if you, again, are just listening to audio, you might want to pop over to YouTube and watch this episode. When I do kinesiology or muscle testing with my clients, with healing work that I do, I will demonstrate for them by pushing on their arm. And when something is true or a higher frequency, it produces energy that is strong and can be felt through the muscles of the body. So I just do a light pressure on their arm and I can feel strong test. The arm stays strong. And I tell them, just try to hold your arm, resist my pressing down on it. But when I say something that's false or untrue or against what the body wants to resonate at, the muscles will actually lose energy. So it will, same amount of pressure that I'm pushing down, it will lose energy and the arm will go weak. So this is a good way for me to be able to identify things like, what age do we need to address when we are doing some healing work? What sort of, vitamins or crystals or flower essences or herbs or whatever that might be, or a 10-point priority wellness plan. What does this body really need to help it get to optimal health and wellness? So I use muscle testing a lot in my work. You can call it witchcraft if you want to. I don't think there's a huge difference to me. Personally, I feel like it is magic, but so is a flower that blooms. So is a mushroom that shows up in your yard overnight. That's all magic. That's incredibly magical to me that those things exist. That doesn't make them not scientifically real and explainable. And kinesiology is the same. There are accredited colleges that study kinesiology, so it's a very real practice, a real thing. But it is kind of magical because it can allow you to ask the body questions and to get to the heart of some things that are going on. And this demonstration I do with my students is I have one of my students stand facing away from the group, and I have them stick their arm out, and I say to the rest of the group, I'm going to give you a thumbs up or thumbs down behind their back. If I do a thumbs up, I want you to think really positive, affirming thoughts towards this person. If I give a thumbs down, I want you to give kind of not degrading, but like negative, like you can't do this, doubtful, fearful kind of thoughts towards the person. Not at them, but just like directed at them. Okay. So I do this as a demonstration so they don't say any of this out loud. It's all in their thoughts. And the person who's facing the opposite way does not know if I'm giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down. They don't know if they're going to be getting good energy or lower vibration energy. And see there, I said good energy when really it's just higher vibration energy. No such thing as good or bad, right? So sometimes you have to like retrain yourself because you've got all that programming from childhood into your mind. So trying to get rid of that vocabulary. But yeah, so the rest of the group is putting that energy towards them. And in every demonstration I've ever seen or done myself, the muscles of the person facing away will go weak when negative energy is directed at them. And their arm will stay strong when positive energy is directed towards them. They will be able to tell based on the muscles energy of their body telling them everyone is giving positive or everyone is giving negative. And that to me helps me understand and teach my students what cursing really can look like in real life. The energy and thought and intention that you're putting out into the universe, whether it's for someone else or for yourself, it matters. It is going to either influence that person in a positive way, giving them energy and strong and capable vibes, or it's going to be giving them, you can't do this, you don't know what you're doing kind of vibes. Now, I do believe we can protect ourselves by giving ourselves that positive vibes. So whether the whole world is thinking negatively about us or not, we can protect our energy. But I do give this as a demonstration to students who are around the age of 9 to 12-year-olds because they're in that age where they're starting to kind of get into their little groups and cliques and some kids fit in, some kids don't. And you get into those kind of, interactions with each other that are like, either you're going to like point someone out as different and make fun of them, or you're going to embrace everyone and be friends, or you're going to be the one who's cast out of the group and made to feel different and strange and that you don't belong. And I want kids to believe that they have the power to either encourage and uplift each other or to curse each other. And I want to leave a final maybe quote on the subject of curses and hexes. I have not in this episode taught you how to curse or hex, or maybe I have, if that's what you were going for. But if you're listening because you wanted to try to learn how to curse and hex, I can tell you right now, it doesn't matter what you do. You can make up your own ritual. You can light a candle and say, I wish this person were dead. I wish this person were harmed in some way. I wish this person's hair would fall out. This is the kind of stuff you're going to see in the witch movies that we're reviewing in the Witch Movie Project, by the way. It's this kind of stuff. And while you might be judgmental judging those kinds of things and saying, oh, that's wrong, that's bad. A bad witch would curse. A good witch doesn't curse. I would tempt you to question that thinking and question even the classification of good and bad. Now, just like I wouldn't physically walk up to someone and harm them on purpose, even someone I didn't like very much or that had hurt me. I wouldn't do that because that's my morals and values telling me that that doesn't feel good in my body. That doesn't feel warm. That doesn't feel like the right thing to do for me. So I do not perform curses and hexes using ritual and symbols and witchcraft. But I'm not going to say that that's a bad thing to do. And here's why. I'm going to take a quote from one of my favorite witch practitioners. She is Marla Starling. She lives in Wales. No wonder I love her, right? I love Wales. If you don't know me by now, you don't know. I love Wales. And she is the author of Welsh Witchcraft. She is also the podcast, The Welsh Witch. And she has a YouTube channel. So Marla Starling, who lives in Wales and practices witchcraft, specifically Welsh witchcraft, she has a chapter in her book, a little bit of discussion about curses and hexes. And I would like to quote her because the way she explains it is pretty much in line with what I've come to understand about cursing and hexing. She says, historically speaking, curses, hexes, and baneful magic are intrinsic elements of witchcraft's history. And then I'm going to skip just a little bit where she talks about some more. In my experience, life does not operate in purely good or bad binary way. I believe any witch should meditate on that and truly delve into their own views on the topic. She goes on to say, I also do not believe that throwing love and light at all obstacles will fix everything. Anger, sadness, grief, pain, and trauma are all immensely powerful energies that can be utilized beautifully in protective ways. The ways of my ancestor were not forged in love, light, bliss, and blessings. Therefore, neither are mine. She says, knowing yourself is vitally important to most spiritual practices. And by questioning and constructing your own view on morality, you are in turn expanding your understanding of your own inner workings and solidifying your practice. I just don't think I could have said it any better. A lot of what witchcraft has come from is from oppressed, marginalized groups, right? A lot of the witches accused of witchcraft in witch trials were women, poor women, and people of color. And a lot of times witchcraft and the practice of witchcraft is born out of people who are marginalized and oppressed and who need to gain some control and power over their lives. They might be slaves in slavery and have absolutely no power over their lives in that point in time in history. And witchcraft was a way for them to gain some autonomy, some independence, and some control or power. Whether you believe that to be true or not, that is what it did for them in relationship to their practice. So before we judge someone for cursing or hexing, maybe understanding the come from and the value system of allowing that person to gain some power over their lives is, even if it was a placebo effect, it has purpose, it has power. And that would be the takeaway for this subject today. Now, next week, I am not going to tell you what next week's subject is going to be, although I have some ideas. This is going to depend solely on questions from listeners that come in. So if you have a topic or question you would like to ask about all things energy healing, emotional healing, the practice of magic and understanding magic in your life, I would like to hear it. So please reach out to me. You can find me on social media, on Instagram at prism_healing, on TikTok at Prism Healing. That's PRISMHEALING. Or on Facebook, Courtney Pearl's Prism Healing. I don't know if you know this, but I am the owner and operator and CEO and only employee of Prism Healing, where I am a Reiki practitioner, emotional healing facilitator, and tarot card reader. So you can reach me and find me on www.prism-healing.com. And I am so excited because in the start of this new season, I am also starting some new things in Prism Healing that are going to be incredible. One of my favorite offerings this year is going to be a 6-month course, Healing Through Art. I have done those in single workshops, but this year you can sign up for a 6-month course with me. Each month we meet around the full moon. We do a Healing Through Art session, which is an emotional process and release. You get a journal. You get a private IPT session with me, and you get to be part of an online group where we are going to discuss and support each other through the whole month, each month. So all of the phases of the moon between the full moons. It's going to be incredible. I'm so excited. I'm working on the curriculum right now, setting up exactly what we're going to do each full moon. And of course, because I love it so much, it's going to be along the themes of Celtic mythology. So we are going to be hearing a little bit about the Celtic folklore as we learn something about the full moon, and we're going to dive deep into ourselves. This is going to be a very powerful healing class. And that starts in October. So if you are hearing this now and you haven't registered for it, and you do live in Daybreak or South Jordan, Utah, nearby area, you're going to want to sign up. So please go to my website. You'll find my blog, my classes, and my services all there. And my online groups. So you can join those or my email list to get newsletters and updates. My blog has resources for each episode. So as this episode is being released, I will be putting out a blog post for the information we talked about today and the resources that I've mentioned, where I got the information about curses and where you can look up those things for yourself. And as we are getting ready to leave, I would like to give a special thank you to Marla Starling, the podcast host of Welsh Witch and the author of the Welsh Witchcraft and Welsh Fairies coming out this month. I can't wait for my copy. I do hope that Mara will at some point be on my podcast. It would be a dream of mine. So if you know her, reach out. All right. So I would also like to thank Just Blaine, who is my co-host on the Witch Movie Project and owner and operator of Ride the Wave Media Network that this podcast and many other amazing podcasts are on. I would also like to give a shout out to Sarah at the Sunshine Community. Being a part of the Sunshine Community has helped me to be a part of a little community of women doing their passions. And that is what I'm doing. That's what I'm here for, doing my passion on this podcast. And I would like to thank you for listening. Please share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. And please share it with anyone you know that is looking for some magic in their lives. Lots of people are lost, struggling, and don't quite know what to do. And I think this podcast could help them. So if you've liked what you've heard and you want to support us in making more of these episodes, and for as long as we can, you can help us by sharing it or writing a review or letting us know your favorite episode or writing in a question for topic for future episode. So thank you so much. Listeners, you are my favorite people in the world. If you've listened, you're my favorite. Okay, witches and wizards, go make magic.